How's it going, Song Advice from Fire fans? Grant from Yecats Miniatures here, bringing you the second ever episode, and by second ever I mean the second time I've done it in 2 years, so I'm cutting it quite fine when I call it a series, but a series nonetheless. We're doing Best Painted, and I'm joined today by my good friend Simon Powell, who recently won Best Painted at the Free Swords tournament in Atfield Peveril. How's it going, Simon?
I'm good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, mate, living the dream. Living the dream. We're living the best of British weather at the minute, so yeah.
Absolutely.
All good stuff.
Well, typically
good stuff.
British will moan about it as well.
Exactly, mate. Yeah. Well, as a ginger person, mate, I'm quite happy with it snowing. Cool. So yeah, you got Best Painted, mate. Congratulations. We're taking us a little while to get around to it, mostly because of me, because of my busy schedule. But I mean, we got there in the end, and I'm looking forward to sitting down with you today. Because although I do enjoy playing the game, my real love for when it comes to tabletop miniatures and wargaming is painting. So I'm really excited about talking to you about how you paint this awesome Lannister army that won your Best Painted. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about the game? How long you played the game? Your local scene? Have you always played Lannisters? All the really cool stuff, the background stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I backed the original Kickstarter. I remember it vividly because there were about 36 hours to go. I was like, I'm probably going to pull out of this one. And then I don't know what happened, but everything went mental and everything got unlocked. And I was like, well, for the price, I can't really pull out now. So I carried on backing it. But at the time, nobody else in my club was really playing it. So it kind of, as with a lot of games for a lot of people, went in the loft and went into the pile of obscurity, for want of a better word. And about a year and a half ago, a few of the guys in the club finally realised that this was a game, had a really cool rule set, a low entry point from a knowledge base, but a high skill cap, and more people started getting into it, and it gave me the impetus to go in the loft and bring down the box. And I was torn between the Lannisters and Starks, but I enjoy. I thought I liked the models, the opportunity with the Lannisters more. Colour schemes, the opportunities. Starks have got some really great models, but the colour scheme is a little bit muted. Is probably a fair way to put it. So I thought I'll give the Lannisters a go. And much like yourself, I'm very much hobbyist first, gamer second. But I've started playing it a little bit more in the club. Done a couple of your tournaments and really enjoyed the atmosphere. It's a great group of people. It's whilst it's a competitive event, it's not. You don't have the typical attitude that you get at a certain Nottingham-based companies tournaments around the country. So it was really good fun, great attitude. So yeah, I'm kind of playing quite a lot of it at the moment. We've got about 14 people in our club that have started playing it, and we're currently doing a slow grow league.
I mean, that's a really healthy number. 14 people playing the game is really good. I mean, as you know, we got quite a good number of people at Chelmsford Bunker playing it, but 14 people playing it is a solid number. Being able to run your own tournaments is incredible. And I think I totally agree with you, because I had the same thing. So I didn't back the Kickstarter, but I did. I bought into it earlier on, and I had the same thing. And I'm not a massive fan of the Lannister playstyle. I do much prefer the Starks, but there is no denying that the Lannister miniatures are exceptional. Like, they're really nice. They're probably the most uniformed army in the entire game, outside of potentially Baratheons. They're really good, and like, I've never really wanted to do an Lannister army until I've seen your stuff painted, and it makes me actually want to go back in there and actually start painting some of this really cool rich red, which is why we're doing today. It's nothing to do with a video. I'm not actually filming it or recording it. I'm just nicking your idea so I can sell it back to you.
Feel free.
Cool, nice. So just a little note as well. There was 3 people that were quite close to winning Best Paint at the Free Swords event. Yourself, Dan the Greyjoy player, and Rick, a Baratheon player. And I couldn't choose, so I chose my friend Steve, who was an unpainted army, so there's no way he was going to win it. And I got him to look. He couldn't choose. Eventually, I had to choose OJ, who was actually the last episode of Best Painted on this channel.
Yeah.
I got him to go around, and he said, "Yeah, you've got to look at the way that the Lannister army's done, how uniformed it looks." Yeah, well done, mate. It was a close competition, but you come out on top.
Yeah. There was some great painted armies, so I was really Really proud to win that event.
The next one's coming up soon. You guys coming down for that one, aren't you? The Christmas one.
Absolutely, I think we've got about 4 or 5 of us coming down for it.
Awesome. You painting the army for that because you can't win twice for the same army.
No, I'm not going to get it done in time, but I will do for the one after. I'm working on Starks at the moment.
Nice. Okay, cool. Right, so let's get stuck into. We've been talking for about 5-10 minutes now, so we'll get stuck into the actual painting side of it. So first up on the screen, I'm going to chuck up your Lannister Halberdiers. What I really like about this unit is the really rich red and the contrast between that silver and the red. I really like how uniform they look. I mean, it helps. I really like the way the Lannister Halberdiers rank up as well. I love the fact they look really uniformed. Some people don't particularly like that, but I love the fact that it looks like they're marching obviously the front rank with the halberds down. With the metals, we couldn't work out if it was non-metallic metal or metallic metal, but I think eventually we came to the agreement that it is metallic metal, but you've done. Is it a matte varnish over the top?
Yeah, so I kind of I'm teaching myself to do non-metallic metals. I'm doing it, but on an army scale with this, it's just such an undertaking to do, especially with the amount of them. But I find normally true metallics come really quite flat. They can look just, because the shine hits them and you lose all volume. So I've started painting my true metallics in a non-metallic method. So I'm mixing in some blacks into the tones to try and pull down the shine out of the pins. And I've actually found with these and a lot of success with using contrast paint over the top of so really thin down contrast paint over the metals gives you a really nice tone, especially with some of the blacks which got almost a bluish hint to them.
Yeah,
takes it off of that silver, and then as you said, I matte varnished the whole model, and then I go back in and just do the very tip highlights with a bright silver on the edge, just to really give it that shine, and that seems to give that non-metallic metal depth, but with actual metallics.
The gold trim as well. That must have taken a while to get the gold trim looking that crisp on each individual model. Is that? I don't believe you ran Guardsmen at this event, but have you painted all of your Lannister State Troop with that gold trim?
I have, yeah, I have.
Wow. What's the trick to that then? Is that just a case of just start with darker brown, or do you go straight in with a brighter gold and wash it? Or
what I typically do is go in with a really dark bronze. So I typically paint all my models with Pro Acryl from Monument now. I moved up to them from Vallejo. I use a few Vallejo and Citadel colours here and there, but predominantly I use Pro Acryl because I like it has quite a matte finish naturally to the paint. So I'll go in with a very dark bronze, maybe even put a little bit of black in, and I'll do the first, again, same with the metallics, I'll do a first highlight with quite a rich gold, and then I'll wash it with a brown, like pin wash it almost with a contrast, and then I'll go back in after the matte varnish of the rest of the model's finished, and with a good edge brush, I'll just run the edge around it. It's really basically just doing edge highlighting, picking out the edge on the side when necessary.
Nice. I've never really thought about using the contrast paints as like a pin wash. I might have to give that a crack. Well, we won't spend too much time talking about the reds and stuff because obviously quite a bit of the army is red, so we're going to come back around to that anyway. But yeah, so it's a great looking unit, and I love how quite almost grimdarkish the colour scheme, which is the way I love painting my models to make it more realistic and as realistic as it can be in a setting with dragons.
yeah, and marching across muddy fields.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. So next up, I'll put on the crossbows. So again, this is very much a similar sort of unit, like the really nice silver, the really deep red. Again, another unit that rank up really well. I still don't understand why they don't give you a fourth model crouching down the front. That winds me right up.
It does. It's all right when you put an attachment in, but if you haven't got an attachment, it's the most frustrating thing in the world.
Yeah. But yeah, a really nice uniform looking unit. So with these guys, so do you want to talk a little bit about the red? Because I really like the red Lannisters. Do you do? Yeah. Is it the same red for the entire army?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I might put a few extra highlights on the characters or the attachments. But typically, what I did with these is I all of the areas that were going to be red, I base coated with a really, really dark green, dark green, and then I xenophiled over the top of the dark green with an ivory.
Okay.
So that the green was just in the recesses, and then I took one of the army painter speed paints, and it's the first gen of the army painter speed paints when they had the resin issue where it was reactivating paint.
Okay.
And I thinned it down a bit, and I airbrushed it over just the areas that were going to be red, and the green reacted really nicely and went in this to this almost really dark purpley green in the recesses, and then the red highlighted nicely over the ivory, and then I just went back in afterwards and just did a little bit of edge highlighting with a slightly brighter red with a little bit of sunny skin mixed in, because I find that's a really nice paint to highlight red that doesn't make it pink. And then with the feathers, I just went a little bit further just to try and give them that, pick out the individual strands of the feathers and stuff. Yeah, I find the green is a really nice undercolor.
Yeah, so I've never tried that. Is that something that is commonly done then, using green as a base coat for red?
Yeah, because it was something I experimented with, and we'll get to it when we talk about some later units with the yellows. Is that I found when I'm doing airbrush and glazing, is that if I use the colour wheel and take the colour that I ultimately want it to be, and then I pick the colour directly opposite it, and I'll use that as a really dark one in the recesses, it seems to react really nicely.
Yeah.
So green being directly opposite red seemed to work really well.
Yeah, it has worked real, mate. It's just really, really nice. Yeah, really, really nice unit. So we'll move on to the next unit, which is your Pyromancers. So we can talk a little bit more about the red here, because these are mostly red. In fact, almost exclusively red.
These were towards the end of me painting red when I'd started to lose the will to live with the colour red.
So on the precipice of giving it all up, you thought, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll paint a unit that's all red.
Absolutely.
So, nice. Sounds like aversion therapy to me.
Exactly.
So yeah, these Pyromancers make really nice. Firstly, it's nice to see someone using Pyromancers. We don't see them that often. I think they're a great looking unit. I quite like how solemn they look. They're quite, just chilled they are. So obviously you paint the red the same way as you did the crossbows, presumably.
Yeah, I did. I took it. I think I took the highlighting a little bit further on the edges because it was such a dominant part. I wanted to have a little bit, so you can see on the guy in the middle at the back on his creases, you can see a little bit further highlight, especially on the edges where the darkness was, just to really give it that like a pop and some colour. So yeah, and the collars obviously went up almost to a complete skin tone colour.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about using the skin tone as a red highlight, because that's something that I've always done. Is even going back to the store days playing other game systems. Is that bronze flesh was always the colour I used to highlight red, and I agree. It's a great colour to highlight red. You don't get that really pinky tinge to it.
No, exactly.
The other thing on this unit that I really like is the Pyromancers, like the actual bombs themselves, kind of Dragonfire.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a little bit how you did that?
Yeah. So that's I actually painted them black originally. So I painted the completely black, then a dark green. I essentially followed a similar technique as Games Workshop would teach you for doing gems. Essentially, where you slowly highlight out to the edge. But I can't, rather than just doing a curve, I kind of tried to make some, change of direction. To make it feel like there was a sloshing liquid in there, and I just highlighted it up till I got to literally ice yellow in a point, and then I took a fluorescent green, thinned it down a little bit, and just glazed fluorescent green back over it to kind of just bring it all together, and then just reintroduced the top highlights, and then to really get that glow effect after I'd matte varnished and finished them, I gloss varnished.
Okay,
to really help with the glow.
Yeah, I really like the way that you've got them. It looks like quite a bubbly liquid inside. It looks like it looks aggressive as it does in the TV show, obviously without taking out the Scepter Baelor.
A couple of individual spots. Yeah, so that's where I was trying to not just do the normal curved gem, but I put like 2 or 3 points of highlight to make it look like bubbles.
The skin tone's really nice as well. The skin tones are really good. Is that what paints are you use to do them?
And this is one of the reasons I like this unit. They've got some really good expression on the faces, especially the bald guy with the beards. I think that's a great model to paint. So this is one of the the few exceptions where I do deviate from the pro-acrylic paints. And I almost all of my Caucasian skin, I start with Bugman's Glow, because it's just such an awesome starting point, I think, for Caucasian flesh. It's Bugman's Glow, and then I slowly highlight it up with like a tan flesh, like a pale one, slowly, but trying to make sure I maintain the depths in the recesses, because I think it's really easy to oversaturate and suddenly it all just blows out. And I did a lot of, it's something I've worked on over the last few years, looking at photos and seeing where the actual points of highlight would hit on things. So like with the bald heads, you'll see that there's a more of almost a halo around the head. So it's not the top of the head isn't necessarily the brightest point. It's almost around a halo, because that's where typically the light would hit. And I think it helps an awful lot.
Yeah, definitely. And just before we move on, man, I want to talk a little bit about the cloak skin, because as a painter, I love painting cloaks and robes. I know a lot of people hate painting it, but I really love it, because I think you can get this guy at the back here that you were talking about when we started this on this unit, is to getting those highlights right on cloaks. It's so satisfying. How do you find painting cloaks?
I have a love-hate relationship with long flowing cloaks. That I love how they eventually turn out, but I hate that point where you're about 2/3 of the way through and you look at it and go, this is awful. I've completely messed this up. I'm going to have to start. And you just kind of have to push through it to get to the end point, and then you go, oh, it's finally come together. So yeah, I love the idea of them. I love finishing them. I hate the middle ground when they just look awful.
Yeah, for me, I always find it's knowing when to stop is the problem with robes, because I'm like, just one more highlight. I'll just do one more highlight, and just if I do one more, they'll look really good. And eventually, I'm like, you're getting to the point where I'm going to go white blind on it, snow blind on it.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think long flowing cloaks and robes is a big thing. It's so easy, as you said, to go too far, and then suddenly it just doesn't look real. Because when you look at, if you hold a piece of material out in the sun, it's only really the very extreme edges that will actually have a massive colour difference. It's more subtle changes between the shades and the light. So I think that's something that I very much try to do is not extend those deep shadows too far. So it's really in the deep creases, and then the mid-tone covers an awful lot of the middle, and then it's only very select areas that I put the top highlights on.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of down for a lot of painters when they come to black robes. If you highlight too much, it will just look like grey.
That's an interesting one. I've moved away from highlighting black with grey, interestingly, because of that, because it's so easy to go into a grey.
Now I use a lot of Scale 75 paints, and they've got a lot of like bluey, petroleum-y greys, and it's really, really nice colour to highlight with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right, well, we'll go for that when you win Best Painter with your Night's Watch.
Absolutely.
All right. Next up, we've got your red cloaks, mate. So
yes,
more reds.
Yeah, and these ones were interesting. So I used the same technique, but I had to make some amendments on these ones because I didn't follow my own rules and I went too high, and suddenly I had almost a yellowy orange on the pitch. And the way I managed to rescue it was to thin down some of the red contrast and just really lightly glazed it back over, but pulling into the recesses. And it seemed to rescue them quite well.
Yeah, well, as a painter, we're our own worst critics at the end of the day. You used probably find no one would have noticed it, but you personally, if you're happy with it, you know that other people are going to be absolutely fine with it. This unit is a fantastic looking unit anyway. You've done it, massive credit. It looks absolutely stunning, but just out of the box, these guys are one of my favourite Lannister units. That Roman Centurion look about them is absolutely fantastic, and I really, really do like the models. And as I say, you've done these massive credit with your painting skills.
Yeah. Yeah, so with the armor and the black, so this is something I found out a few years ago, because I always found black really frustrating to paint because, as you said earlier, it's so easy to go into grey, but what I realised is that like a really dark, like you mentioned, a really dark, like desaturated blue is a really nice colour to use. So like dark sea blue from Vallejo as an example, and I'll black out the area, and I'll use a dark sea blue with a bit of black in, and I'll bring it up to dark sea blue, and then just a little bit of like a desaturated ivory into it to bring the edge, but being really, really subtle and making sure I'm only on the edges or the real high points. And I think the rule I keep in my head is that if I'm painting something black, 2/3 of it needs to be black. because then if the majority of it's black, it will register as black no matter how high you take the highlights. And then obviously the joy of picking out loads and loads of studs with silver paint.
Yeah. It's I mean, I've just recently finished painting 4 units of Stormcrows, and whoever decided to equip them with studded armor needs to be kicked in the nuts swiftly.
So I'm fairly confident they stroke a white cat laughing at people when they do them.
Yeah, let's release a new army. Let's make them all studded. But yeah, so that's really cool, man. So you've obviously gone with like the card arts. You've gone for the red like face mask, the shields on it. Is that how have you done that? Have you done that as a metallic-y red?
Yeah, exactly. So it's the same colours, but I've tried to paint it in an NMM style, so taking it to a higher highlight point. So really almost taking it up to white in points. You can see it on the knee pads as well, where I've used a similar starting point, but just taking it further. And then also the other thing is, this is where I take the dark areas further and making sure that I have a really bright highlight as close to the darkest section. That's where I found it really helps with making that metallic appearance.
And as well, it's just come back around again now. But the standard is something that we all, myself, Stephen, OJ, all pointed out whilst we were judging your stuff. You've managed to get such a nice, realistic fabric on the banners. The cloaks are nice. The cloaks are really good, but for some reason, your banners absolutely are exceptional. Have you got a different way of painting them to the cloaks?
It's a very similar way, but I try and make I try and take the depths of the folds really dark. So around the poles and areas like that, I try and take it as almost down to black.
Yeah.
Because just to really accentuate it, and then again taking the highlights a little bit further. But with the highlights, so the extreme creases, like on the front, just underneath the lion's head, it's easy just to take them to a really crisp edge highlight. But when you're trying to take the highlights on a bulge like you've got at the front at the bottom, it's doing an edge highlight just makes it look unreal. So what I tend to do there is I'll do the highlight, but then I'll kind of glaze the highlight out a little bit. Yeah. So it comes to a point, but it's not as obvious that it's come to the same. So that front bit is almost the same colour as the extreme creases, but it doesn't register quite as extreme because I've blended it out a little bit.
Nice. I mean, when we get onto some of the other units, the actual standard bearer itself jumps up another level again, which is something that was commented on. So, but we'll get to them when we get to them. So yeah, another really nice unit, mate. Red Cloaks. Do you tend to find yourself running more than one, or do you just run the one unit?
I am seriously considering running a second unit. Yeah, I'm not sure I can go quite as deep as other people have and run 3 units in an army. That feels like I'm committing myself a little bit too much. But I can see it. I can see a world of 2.
Yeah. Such a nice looking unit. Really good. I hope they do. Yeah. Move this look to other units in the Lannister army. Like if they release new units, they carry on with like that Roman look. Because I love them. I really do. This unit, and the way you paint it.
There's so much motion in these models as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with the cloaks, 100%, mate. Yeah, this unit, and even more so with the paint job that you've done on them, makes me actually want to do a Lannister army, which is dangerous because I don't think I can afford another army.
I appreciate that. Don't tell the wife it was my fault, though.
Yeah, that's right. Hopefully she won't watch. So next up, mate, we've got your knights. Now these really do stand out as well because you've got really nice dark horses. Obviously, I would imagine that's a choice to keep the contrast nice between the horse and the barding.
Absolutely, yeah. Deliberately trying to hide it because I think I considered going with like a more like reddish brown. I think that the separation would disappear, and that. So I was like, just keep it as dark a brown as I can keep it, which will give a nice pop to the silvers, without having to make them bright silver and make the red stand out as almost like a border.
Yeah, with the details on. So there's 2 things I want to pick up on. So with the details on the gold and the shields, is that been painted in gold or is that in yellow?
That's in gold. So that's in gold, but it's been, again, I've put a dark brown contrast over the top of it, let that dry, and then picked out the details.
It's kind of really nice, mate. It's all the details really crisp, all the contrasts work really nice. The other thing is that how realistic you've managed to get these reins on the horses. You've got like that weathered leather look to them. How do you achieve that?
So do really basic highlighting. So like obviously start a little bit of a layered kind of blended approach, but it doesn't need to be too blended, because I think that the way of getting leather, in my opinion, to look realistic is to not have these perfect blends. It's meant to have a scratchy nature, and then with the top highlight going along the edge, but not a complete edge, so breaking it up, so it's just little ones, and then some cross hatching across it. And then what I did to kind of harmonize it is to just give it a glaze of the mid-tone over. So I really like glaze of the mid-tone over the whole thing, which toned down, because those scratches are literally bright ivory before I toned them down.
Nice. And what I also really like is how the saddle of the rider is really nice. Is that so? Obviously, I've seen them, we filmed them, but did you go for? Is that a black or is that a dark brown?
So the saddles are really dark brown, dark brown, but it's quite a greyish brown, so like a really dark burnt umber. Yeah. And then rather than highlighting it with another brown, it's just a muted ivory on the edges, and just trying to maintain as much depth as possible.
Is that the same brown as the reins, or was that separate to the reins? Was that a different brown?
It's the same brown, just not taken to the same height. They're good fun to paint these, but they're like the only models in the Lannister range where I really wish they would resculpt them, because they look so small compared to other heavy cavalry.
I think that the models are nice. They're really nice. I think Duncan Rhodes has actually come out and said that what's some of his favourite sculpts for the game. But I do agree they need to be slightly bigger now. And like, you know, you've got a bit with this guy at the back here. That lance, that bend is just impossible to straighten it out. You know, but it's nothing that you've done. It's nothing that, you know, playing the game has done. It's literally just.
I've tried everything with it. Hot hairdryer, hot water. It just does not want to straighten.
Mouth of a volcano.
Yeah, it might be where I have to go to.
But I've seen some really nice ones. If you've ever seen them online, there's someone done some Baratheon champs, and they replaced the torsos with, I don't know if it's these guys or if it was red cloaks, and put lance in their hands. But they're really nice looking sculpts. It just makes the horse look a lot hench. Obviously, Baratheon horses are huge, aren't they?
Yeah,
well, Destriers.
Massive.
Cool. This is another lovely unit, mate. Nice one. Well, that brings us to the end of your Lannister units. Now we got your House Clegane stuff. So obviously, this is giving you a chance to, and this is what I really love about Song of Ice and Fire, is the fact that you can paint an army, but you're not stuck to that one colour the entire time. I love it about Starks because there's so many different sub houses or smaller minor houses within the main faction that you can, if you get bored of painting that one colour, you can literally shift across to another colour. Obviously, yellow is not the easiest colour to paint. These guys have a bit of yellow in it, so I think we can't really let the opportunity pass by without us talking about painting yellows. And this is the banner that we were talking about, this one and the Brigands, that really stands out as such an incredible paint job on these banners. So I think you owe it to us to tell us how you do it and give us your secrets.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do that. So this one, I like the idea. I love the background of the Cleganes. So I always wanted to have a Clegane one, and they play so differently on the table to a standard Lannisters. They're very much an aggressive attack force, and I'd never really given yellow a proper try before. I knew how difficult yellow could be, but I wanted to try and use the same theory that I'd done with the red of using the colour wheel, and wondered how it'd work. And it worked really well and was really simple. I was gobsmacked at how quickly I was able to bust out the yellow on these. So using that colour theory, essentially, it's the same. So I took a really dark magenta and sprayed anywhere that was going to be yellow, got a healthy coat of that all over, like a unified coat. And then I took a bright magenta and did a first zenithal highlight, and then I took a bright ivory and did the final one. And then I airbrushed contrast yellow over the top, and it all pulled it through to this. And then all I needed to do was a very minimal edge highlight and final highlight of a bright yellow, like just off slightly less than ice yellow, and that was it. And I was really happy with how the yellow came out.
Yeah, and I guess the standard was painted same principles as the red on the Lannister banners, yeah?
Exactly, yeah, just blending out that top highlight on the more rounded, so you can see it there, the more rounded crease, taking it a little bit further than just an edge highlight.
Yeah, nice. With the silvers with these guys, is that the same silvers as you use for your Lannisters, or did you go for a darker silver for these guys?
Exactly that. So it's the same technique, but I started at a darker silver and didn't go quite as bright prior to the matte varnish, and then just did a really final limited highlight with the bright silver after the matte varnish. Just wanted to give them that slightly more gritty, dark, like almost raw iron tone rather than a plate steel.
Yeah, no, I'll do exactly the same thing with my Starks. I'll tend to do the Stark units a lot darker metal, a lot more of a grim sort of iron look rather than a nice steel. Whereas the House Tully stuff, I'll go to a brighter silver with. It's obviously more highly polished look. So I totally get that, and it looks great. It looks like they look aggressive, a really aggressive unit. It's nice to see you using them. We don't see them loads nowadays on tournament scene, so it's nice to see them on there. Yeah, okay, cool, sweet. Let's strength for that. Then let's move on to your next Clegane unit, the Brigands. Special mention to the standard. The standard is absolutely phenomenal in this. If anyone gets the chance to see Simon at any of our events, do check any Brigands unit. Do check out the standard. Obviously, this unit is a lot more muted than all of the other units.
Yes.
There was that slight bit of yellow on there. Was that a choice to try and make him a lot more earthy?
Yeah, it was definitely a choice. I think the reason I went with more earthy tones is I kind of see these guys more as like the outriders, the rangers of the Clegane list more than anything. So I wanted to try and make them as if they might have gone ahead a couple of days and they've been living almost in tents. So I wanted them to fit in with a bit of the yellow, like little sparks of it outside of the banner, but not make them as obvious. And even with the yellow on their bodies, I tried to not take it quite as high as I've taken it on others. But yeah, very much a decision to make them a little bit more grim dark than the others.
Yeah, nice. I think you got that spot on. That's how I see these guys. I see these guys being like not even ever going back to the House Clegane, literally living on the road and not potentially not even in tents, other people's houses, probably eating their dinner and stuff.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
It looks really nice, and it really does. It's nice contrast, that really rich red that you've got on all of your House Lannister stuff. So that's quite nice you're doing that. So away from a painting perspective, how do you find playing these guys? Because obviously they used to be 7 points, they dropped to 6, which I think is a lot fairer spot for them. Are you getting much mileage out of them now?
So I am. So I'm not necessarily. I don't necessarily get huge amounts of damage out of them in every game, but they're so quick at move 6 with the cavalry move as well. Is that I'll stick them on a flank that's maybe not got so many other units, and just they'll go steaming up the board. Depending on the scenario, they may just go and sit on an objective that's further away. Other times they'll try and come round from the back, because on a charge into the rear or into the flank, they can do some serious damage with 7 attacks on a 3+.
Cool. So next on screen, then we've got, which is the only only neutral unit you have in your armies, or the list of the day. It's the Golden Company Swordsmen. These were massive draw points your army. So when all the armies are laid out, these were huge draw points everyone to have a look at. You had the lovely reds, the rich reds, Lannisters, but this gold armor and this black cloth is really, really nice. I know in the artwork they're wearing, I think, orange, strangely, but this is incredible. Yeah, it is. It really is. But these are incredible. So I think we need to talk about the black and the gold and the contrast between the two. So do you want to take us through that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I very much wanted to lean heavily into the gold and the black. So the gold meant, one, they were true to what they're supposed to be, Golden Company Swordsmen, but it also meant that they'd sit nicely in that Clegane army, because I run these with the Mountain as a commander in them, and I wanted them to be obviously a unit of their own right, but to sit within the coherency of the army. Hence why there's a little bit of red in there to kind of nod to the Lannister aspect in there. And then the black, it's following the same technique that I discussed before around using like that dark petrol type blue and then blending out the edges. So as you see, very much staying true to trying to make at least 50%, if not more, of the cloth just being black, and using a matte black really helped.
So with the golden, is that the same principle as the silver? What have you mixed in there to give that more of a muted, non-metallic sort of feel? Because obviously, or have you mixed black in with that, or is that a brown? Or
exactly that. So there's a little bit of black in with the bronze to really take it to a more muted saturation. And even with the first highlights, I mix a little bit of brown in. not because I necessarily wanted the brown, but I just wanted to mute out the metallics a little bit. And then to get the pop, I use a really bright silver, like a bright silver, and then a really bright gold, and then with a final real like specular highlight of just a bright silver to give that final pop in the top areas.
Nice. When you came around and when we filmed this stuff, you were talking about you might go back and retouch up a few bits here and there. Did you ever have the urge to freehand on the shields or do freehand stuff on the banner, or is that not your thing?
No, I haven't done it yet, but I absolutely do want to try and do a freehand on the banner. I just haven't decided what I want to do on it. It's like there's not just a very obvious Golden Company logo, so I'm still trying to work out what I want to do on there. And depending on how that comes out on the banner, I may then go back in and put a similar emblem on the shields.
Yeah, I think the Golden Company banner, isn't it like a skull with a sword for it?
Yeah, I think so. But on the box art, for some reason, there's like almost like a tree emblem on one of the shields, which was a bit weird.
Yeah, I don't know if definitely it is a skull and sword, but yeah. Well, once you've done it, mate, definitely send me over a picture of it, because I'd love to see it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm
sure someone will leave a comment in the section below to tell us what it is.
Yeah, there's people that'd be really helpful.
Yeah, lovely, cool. Yeah, really nice shirt there as well, mate. So we spoke about him, so you might as well get stuck into looking at him. You got the mountain that rides.
It's quite possibly my favourite model in the entire game.
Yes, obviously this is the Kickstarter exclusive one.
It is, yeah, it is.
Have you got the Lannister 3 Hero one?
I've got the Hero 3. I will do it. I just like the horses are both great. I like the horse, like the rearing up horse, and on the general availability one, it's just for some reason he kind of feels like he's about to fall off the back of the horse with how he's got his arms wide. I love the momentum of this one, like just leaning into it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's nice that there's two different models for him, because at least if you decide that you want to do something a bit more scenic with a base, you can actually glue him into the base and then style it so it looks like you've got one for the attachment and one for the solo. Obviously, you've used him as a solo rider here, so it's going to be hard to talk about this. So I'm not covering stuff that we've already spoken about, because obviously the yellows and the silver are exactly the same as the Clegane Mountains Men, I guess.
Yeah, exactly the same. Interestingly, this was the first model I painted for the Clegane, so I really went in and chose the most important model for some reason to try and do my test pieces on.
Well, to be fair, he's a really detailed miniature, so you've really got loads of crease there to really work on the folds of the cloth and stuff. I mean, what you can talk about is the weathering. So obviously, this is the first. I believe it's the first time that we've obviously seen you do some weathering on a miniature. Yeah. First off, how'd you do it? And secondly, are you planning to do it on more?
Yeah, I think I will do, because it came out well. I think I'll definitely do it more. It's tough I find it a little bit more tough on the Lannisters with the dark red, because it's difficult to find something that will stand out. But on the yellow, I think it adds something to it. So what I did here is I used pigments. So it's the same stuff I use on the bases. But what I did is I basically first of all, I did kind of a brushing with the pigments just to get a subtle tone all over the bottoms of the horse, the horse's yellow, and also his cloak. And then what I did after that is once that was dry, I kind of stippled some with a really old busted out dry brush, stippled some water on to the areas I wanted to, and just kind of flicked some of the pigment onto it. And that's where I got this kind of stippled effect, because when the pigment hit the water spots, it just sunk in, and then I obviously varnished over the top.
Yeah, it's come out really well. Pigment's quite a tough thing to use, but you seem to have got that quite well there with the flicking stuff, because it's sometimes people can do it and it can destroy a miniature because they do it too heavily, and they'll tell you that it's because they want it to look grimdark. And although grimdark is all about being gritty and dirty and dark, you ultimately in the day you need the miniature to be nice and read well. And I think what you've done with the weathering here is that you've kept it. He still is a big guy in armor with bright yellow cloaks, but with a horse that is trudging through a muddy field, kicking the crap out of people. So exactly,
I think you're right. Grimdark's a great art style, but I think it's also a hell of an excuse for some people.
Yeah. As I said at the beginning, I love things looking natural and realistic as possible when it comes to miniature painting and stuff. So I think weathering's a must to make it look, to take it to the next level, but just be careful that it doesn't go, not you, but the wider public listening. Just be careful not to go too far and
Yeah.
completely destroy the bottom half of the miniature.
I was really happy with how the hooves came out on this horse as well. I mean, they look really realistic.
Yeah, do you want to talk us through how you done that?
Yeah, so it's. I chose, obviously being a black horse. I wanted to go as dark as possible because you want a contrast, but you want it to look like it's meant to be there. So I started with a really blacked out brown, and then brought it up to like a dark umber, and then just put some scratch marks, similar to how I did the leather.
Yeah.
So took a bright ivory, like a deep. I say bright, it's more of a desaturated ivory, and did the edge highlight, and then kind of just dragged into from the dark into the highlights, and then glazed back in a darker color over the top of the back into the depths. And I think it really conveys like that almost like bony nature of a hoof. I'm really happy with how they came out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've finished painting up a Targaryen army, and I've for the horses there, I've really gone to town, and I've got loads of different colours. So I want it to look really as ununiform as I could, and it's making sure you get the right colour of hooves is quite clutch when you do that sort of thing, because obviously you've got a dark horse, you need a light hoof. If you get a lighter horse, you want a dark hoof.
Absolutely.
And I always try and read off of real life references, so I'll look on Google and get pictures, and I'm like, well, what happens if there's a light horse? Surely they don't have a bone hoof. And I'm like, oh my god, there is an absolute mass amount of different hoof styles in the world. I'm like, I don't need to know any of this. I just need to know that there is the dark hooves exist.
Exactly.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, you've done a really great job on him.
Cheers, mate.
That's all units done. So we're moving into characters. And what we'll do is, as we go around, I'll pause on the character we're talking about so that we can get an actual look at it rather than just completely spin around the whole time. So first up, we've got Tywin Lannister. So this is Tywin is possibly one of my most favourite characters in the TV show and in the books. I think he's a great guy. I actually think if they'd made him king, I think it probably would have been less of a problem than Joffrey. But
I think you're right.
I've just come back off holiday, and on the holiday I've been reading the history of Ice and Fire. I can't remember what it's called now, but it's basically the world of Ice and Fire, and it talks about him in there a lot. And I think he's one of the best characters in the books, alongside Eddard Stark. And it's such a rich background, mate. We don't need to get into that now, but yeah, Tywin. So I think do you want to talk through Tywin? I'm loving the red and gold armor on him.
Yeah, that was something I really wanted to, and I've seen a lot of other people that have painted him. Have painted him just with gold armor and the red cloak. But I really wanted to go with, because on his box art, I'm pretty sure it shows that he's got like it's red armor with like a gold filigree. I really wanted to go with that approach on him, because I think it breaks out. It's very easy, I think, with paint, full plate suits of armor to just become very nondescript, so it's just loads of shiny plates and you kind of lose the detail. So what I did is I painted all of the armor, the recessed panels, with this dark red, trying to then highlight it up to make it look like a metallic red. And then I went in afterwards and followed a similar process with the gold to take it to a gold edge. So he is wearing, outside of the silver chainmail, he's wearing red metallic armor, like non-metallic red armor with gold edging. Yeah,
it's really nice, mate. And so with the cloak, obviously you've gone for that red colour again. How early on in the process of painting was Tywin? Was he before the red cloaks, after red cloaks? Was he an early miniature, a later miniature?
He was a fairly early miniature, so I think he was probably before the red cloaks.
Yeah, it looks really nice, mate. It looks really good. Next up, we have Vargo Hoat. So obviously it's a neutral attachment. I quite like how this guy's got absolutely nothing to tie him into anything in your army. So there's, other than the base, but there's no Lannister register, there's no Clegane register. I love the fact that he's quite obviously just a mercenary. Had you painted Vargo prior to tournament?
It's similar with Bronn, to feel like they were somebody who's just been brought in underhanded because they were needed. Again, obviously, probably a large part to the fact I wanted him to be usable in other armies, being a neutral character. I know it would bug the hell out of me if I painted him with red and then tried to play him in a Stark army, for instance. It wouldn't. So I wanted to
try and keep him as neutral and as gloomy, for want of a better word, as a character with Vargo Hoat's background should be.
Yeah, definitely. What's the brand using the cloak there? That's a really nice brand. The colour on the cloak.
It's a really dark umber. So it's called. I think it's called Dark Umber from Procral. But again, I took it back down with like coal black. So it started at a coal black, and then slowly introduced this dark umber up to the mid tone, and then just used a little bit of lighter umber just to pick out the edges.
What I really like about this Vargo model is the contrast between the whole miniature and that dagger.
Yeah.
That's really, really nice. It just points him out as a man not to be with, isn't it?
Exactly, that was it. I wanted. So this is one of the few ones that I use. I've gotten really bright with the sword because I just wanted.
Yeah.
Normally, I'd try and not make something that low in the model as a focal point. I'd gone really muted. I wanted his face and this dagger to be really, really bright and a focal point because he's not a man to be trifled with, especially when you look at his rules and his ability to just kill an attachment for fun.
Yeah, mate, he's a powerhouse. Really is a powerhouse. Yeah, really nice, mate. Really nice. You've done really well on the level of that one as well. Next up, we've got the mountain that walks rather than the mountain that rides. Obviously, we can't really talk much about him because he's pretty much a carbon cut out of the guy on the horseback, right?
He is literally the same technique, same colour schemes, just painted him in exactly the same way.
I'll tell you, we can talk about it, though. How comes you decided? And it's not a criticism at all. It's just a question, really. Why did you decide not to put any other colours of metal on him, like brass or bronze or gold? You just literally went for the dark silver.
So he's got a gold hilt on his sword, just to kind of break out a little bit of colour. But the reason I went just dark metals because it just felt right with his character, and it meant that the yellow was the pop. I was worried that if I put in some brasses and some golds, one, I felt it would pull away from who he is as a character, like his actual persona of I'm not here to be fancy. I'm just here to pop your eyes. And I was worried that it would deflect from that pop of yellow if I put a bright gold in there.
I'm not here to be fancy. I'm here to pop your eyes. That's a hell of
Pretty much it.
hell of a house quote. No, I agree. I think you can imagine someone bringing a suit of armor to the mountain with gold trim on it, and his reaction to that.
Yeah, exactly. I almost went with the idea of like the Dark Knight from Monty Python, like the Black Knight. So
yeah, I really like it. I mean, the thing is, it's strange because in most armies you put gold on the armor or you put different accents on the armor to make the character stand out from the army. But in Lannisters, in fact, you've got the opposite there, where you don't need to, it's because the whole army has got the fancy filigree and the gold trims on it and stuff. The characters don't really need that, and that then makes them stand out anyway. That and the fact the miniature's like 5 inches tall.
Yeah, it does help.
Cool. Next up, we've got his brother, Sandor Clegane. Again, it's a really, I'll say basic paint job. I don't mean that it's a base paint job. I mean, like, there's not much going on with it other than the fact that it's just a really nice dark suit of armor. I don't really see much of Sandor in this version of Sandor. I don't know why we don't see him because he comes with fuel by slaughter, which is a great rule. Do you want to talk us a little bit through Sandor and how you paint him and what you try to achieve with it?
Yeah, so this is probably one of the models I had the most difficulty with not doing, but just trying to decide what I was going to do because it is essentially a full suit of silver armor with a silver sword. I was like, it's a bit drab. It's going to be a bit boring, and then I just thought, I kind of was like, that's who he is.
Yeah,
he is literally a no frills Etsy version of his brother, for want of a better word. So I was like,
don't tell him that.
Exactly. So I thought, you know what? He's going to go into a unit that's really brightly coloured. So he's going to stand out by nature, like you said, he's going to stand out because he's not the brightly coloured one.
Yeah.
So I took a little bit more focus on his face. And so not so much the right hand side, but the left hand side. There's a lot more. So I glazed some reds in and some more muted skin tones, a bit of ivory to make it look like the burns and the scars as you would expect. That's where I put more of his colours. The reason I take him, it is interesting that he's not. Fueled by Slaughter was great. It absolutely is. For me, the biggest thing with him is the fact that he turns a unit into Clegane.
Yeah.
And I run him in Pyromancers. Pyromancers with the ability to trigger off of any of the Clegane tactics cards is an absolutely scary thing for the opponent when they realise what you're doing.
Great, and he's a great character as well, isn't he? He's just really even the TV show, the books. He's always a great character.
He's so underrated in both. I love it. I love the character.
Yeah, 100%, mate, 100%. Next up, we have another no frills kind of guy. We got Bronn.
We have.
So again, lots of muted tones, lots of like dark metals. He's got the gold on the sword hilt there. But did you want to talk us a little bit through Bronn and your painting process around him?
Yeah, so similar to Vargo Hoat, I wanted him to feel like a guy that was, he wanted to deliberately sit in the shadows until somebody paid him enough to do what he was doing. And I love his rules. Essentially being like a miniature version of Kevin, and being able to trigger a second attack off the bag is awesome, especially in something like Crossbowman. Being able to shoot twice a turn, maybe even 3 times if you can get the swords as well, is awesome with Lannister Crossbowman. Again, I wanted him to not be an assuming character. So even his chainmail is quite muted. So I've gone with like a really dark iron type chainmail. On his shield, it's a black rim with silver detailing. I'm really happy with how he came out. Really happy.
Yeah, I mean, I've not got around to painting Bronn yet. I've got the 2 versions, same as you have from the Kickstarter and and the normal. There's actually 3 versions of him now, I think. And there's Heroes, Heroes 2 as well. But yeah, I'm going to take some inspiration from this. I'm going to paint mine quite similar because I'm going to do one for Starks, one for Targaryens, and potentially the last one I'll do for Greyjoys, just to make it mix up and do a little bit for the basing. So that is all of your on-field units. Now we're just going to take a look at your NCUs. So next up we got Pycelle. So here he seems to be a lot like there's lots of similarities here between Pycelle and your Pyromancers. Was that a choice that you made?
Absolutely, yeah. The way I see him is that he's essentially an elevated version of a Pyromancer that's somehow managed to snuck himself into the era.
Nice. Obviously, the stuff that makes him stand out is the gold goblet and the poison and stuff.
I tried to do my best not to make him just look like Father Christmas. So that's why he's got gold chains and gold filigree, just to break up the red and the white beard.
Mate, you ain't worry about that, mate. Everyone knows that Craster's really Father Christmas.
Absolutely.
He gives presents to everybody, even the White Walkers. Next up, we've got Shae. Now, I've seen a lot of Shae. She seems to be quite a good NCU. I've not personally used myself yet. You've gone for like a really nice, like a purpley whitey colour. Do you want to talk us through that and the process of that?
Yeah, so I rather than like the box art, I remember when I kind of went with the series more. So I remember when she's first in the series, I'm pretty sure she's wearing like a really purpley, almost see-through dress when we first meet her. So I wanted to try and go with that idea. So I spent an awful lot of time on her flesh because it makes up a vast majority of the model, trying to get the shades right around the knees and under the legs and that sort of area. And then with the purple dress, I tried to get it as close as I could to looking like it is almost like the sort of thing she was wearing, like that almost semi see-through outfit. So the way I did that is by using the same final bright tan, like the really light skin tone that I was using for her as a final highlight. I brought that into the highlights around the areas where you'd have less shadow on the dress. So on the back, around where it was sitting around the base of her back, you'll see there's a little bit more of a skin tone brought into that around the tops of her shoulders and that sort of area. But very much focusing more on. This is one where I went with really working on the blends, because I think if you get the blends run on the parts that you can see, it's going to show up heavily.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, you did that. That's a really nice purple. What purple is that you've used there?
So that is royal purple as a base, and then highlighted up with what I think they call it light faded purple and lilac.
Okay, nice.
And then just added in some. Again, this one I actually went with white for the highlight, because having that almost chalky effect wouldn't have worked badly with what I was trying to achieve. Typically, I try not to use white as a highlight other than specular highlights, because I think it mutes out very easily and think you can lose it. So I tend to use various ivories. With this one, I did use white because I think it made sense.
Yeah, it's great, mate. And finally, you've got Varys. I like it. It's really nice. But you've gone for the red and gold. So you've gone for like the more royal-esque Varys. So like very much the Master Whisperers. The one that I painted was more in brown stuff, but I tried to make mine look more like he was in the TV show when I met with Danny.
Absolutely.
So yeah, do you want to talk us through this guy? Obviously, this is the first time that, other than this light purple and Shae, this is the first time we see you paint white in this army. So do you want to talk us a little bit through that in your process there?
Yeah. So I used to make a mistake where if I'm painting white, I have to start with grey because that's a shadow of white, and I've learned over the years that actually doesn't produce in a lot of the times a great white. So I've started to use more browns, like really like on the grey spectrum, like bluey browns in the low lights, and then bringing them up through ivory, white as the absolute top of the highlight, but with white enough to make it register as white. So yeah, that's what I've done here.
Was it a choice? Did you go with red because he was in your Lannisters, or was it just you were to make him look like a really rich character?
Yeah, it was a bit of both. So because he was in the Lannisters, obviously it made sense to put it in there. But also, I wanted him to feel like the early version of Varys we meet, where he's very boisterous and flaunting his wealth.
Yeah, yeah. And it's quite nice. You've got the gold trim as well around the sleeves. Well, really makes him stand out as a really important character. So with your NCUs, you've gone for base them in the same way as the army, rather than like an office based base, if you will. Is that what's the choice around that? Is it just, but again, it's not criticism. It's just understanding your choices and the way you want to paint.
I owned an ard over that for a long time. I was very, very close to like doing a courtyard kind of basing, like cobblestone basing. The reason I went this way is that some of them I can utilize. You can utilize as attachments. I thought, well, if I'm going to have one that I've done as an attachment, then it's going to look weird. So I just kind of decided to go with a uniform basing because and the way I looked at it was that they don't have to just be in King's Landing to be having a political thing. They could be at the in the tents at the back of the field having a conversation.
And yeah, whilst really, let's talk a little bit about the basing as well. So obviously, you've not. The last episode we did was OJ, and OJ really sort of did a lot of work on his bases. You seem to be a person that's not that into doing big things on the bases. Is that a choice, or is there a reason behind that, or is it just not something you not fancy doing?
It's kind of a mixed thing. So I love doing basing when on certain models. So on skirmish games, I'll go to town, with scenic base, things like that. I was worried with one, rank and file, just the sheer volume of models that they can be difficult, and two, I didn't want the characters to drastically stand out when they were in a unit. So put a massive scenic model with a huge base, and you stick them in a unit where everybody's just kind of trudging through a field. I wanted there to be some uniformity to how the army looked in the trays. So what I did with the characters, you'll see, like as you can see on Tywin there. So I've added some rocks and things like some resin rocks for the bases, just to add a little bit of fight and elevation. And then I make my own tuff. So I made some tuff in about 3 different colours, just to add a variety of colour to the base, and then use pigments over base in place. So I wanted the models to stand out more than the basing, but I wanted the bases to fit in with the movement trees.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's not a criticism. They're not on big things, but it's just interesting because I like talking to people and sort of their process, because there's some people that want to put blood on swords, but there's other people, like myself included, that feel that if you put blood on swords, it looks a little bit too cheesy if it's not done in exactly the right way. And the same comes to basing. It's horses for courses.
Absolutely, yeah. So skirmish games, I tend to go a little bit more in deep, or just any model. I think it's the movement trays more than anything. I just wanted them to look right in the movement trays.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, so Harry's. So just sorry, go through your basing again. So you basically put sand on the base, paint it, and then pigment
So
it.
it's more of a concrete basing paste from AK Interactive that I put on and then just make it a little bit choppier rather than a little bit lumpier. If it's a character, they get some resin rocks, and then that gets painted typically really simply. So I on most of them it's just an ink, like a really dark umber ink that I'll put over the whole thing as a base. Might do a little bit of a dry brush, but I try to, when I'm trying to do more natural looking, more realistic looking bases, I tend to use pigments.
Yeah.
So I'll have 2 or 3 different colours of pigments. Try and get a dark brown in the shadows so it makes sense, and I'll put them in and kind of mush them around, and then I'll use a pigment fixer. Stick the pigment fixer on the base so the pigments just stay put, and then I'll put some static grass tufts on to add some height and elevation.
Nice. Cool. Well, that's it then. We've covered all of your stuff. And again, congratulations for winning Best Painted. It was definitely deserving, mate. You've done a great job in this army. I look forward to seeing what you do with the Starks. Is that where you're going next then?
I think we're going to go with Starks next, because I think I need to start painting the stuff I've got before I buy new stuff. However, I have had my eye drawn to the idea of the Brotherhood without banners.
Oh yeah, with the lakes, yeah, they're looking well. Another new mini faction.
Yeah, the only other one that I'm looking at it maybe is Bolton's, just because I have a lot of them from the Kickstarter, and I kind of like the army. I'd be quite interested in putting little splashes of like a really dark desaturated magenta into the army with that.
Well, if you do get pulled into House Bolton, we do have we have a club every Thursday night where we self-flagellate and hit each other with whips because we enjoy the pain of running a lesser faction.
Seems apt.
It's a cool club. You get a card and everything, and the first drinks on the house. Cool. Oh man, well cheers for your time, mate. Cheers for coming and talking to us today, mate. Really do appreciate it. I know it's taken a while to get to this stage, but it's really, I do appreciate having you spend some time and talking to me and my viewers about the way you paint this army, because I think it's quite inspiring army to see. And if anyone does get a chance to see Simon's army on the battlefield, do go and check it out, because as a unit, as a one big piece on the tabletop, it looks fantastic.
I really appreciate the opportunity, Grant, and look forward to attending many more of the tournaments that you run.
We could have seen it. I look forward to seeing you win Best Painted with your next army.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, man. Well, you take care, mate, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, mate. Speak soon.
Cheers, mate. Bye. Thank you so much to Simon Powell from the Hornchurch Heroes for coming onto the show to talk to us about how he painted his Lannisters and how he won the Three Swords event in Hatfield Peveril. It's been a long time in recording this, so I do apologise to Simon for dragging out so long. We've got more episodes coming for Best Painted. We've got more events coming, so please do check them out. I'll put a link in the description below. And make sure you do like the video, share it among friends, and subscribe to the channel. It helps with the YouTube analytics and helps us push the content out a bit further. Other than that, this is Grant from Yecats Miniatures signing off. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.